We develop and advocate for product stewardship and extended producer responsibility as tools in the toolbox to help build a circular economy. And we believe that consumer goods companies and corporations need to be accountable and responsible for the environmental and social impacts of their products. And we primarily act as a strategy and policy think tank and as conveners around these issues. So being in the business that we're in, you can imagine that we attract a lot of die-hard recyclers as supporters of the organization. And I think you folks know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that rinse out their produce bag for the 150th time before they head to the grocery store, or folks that repurpose your salsa jars into wine glasses, or you've maybe got some yogurt tubs dating back to the 1990s with multiple layers of masking tape on it that detailed all the contents of your fridge over the years. So anyway, I was talking recently to one of these die-hard recyclers. He's a friend of ours named Arthur Boone. Many of you know he's one of the godfathers of the recycling movement here in California. And Arthur was saying to me, he said, Matt, pretty much everything that comes into my house eventually makes its way over to the green or the blue cart. And when I look into my trash can, all I see are these crappy, low-value, flexible plastic packaging. What are we going to do with all this stuff? So the goal of my presentation today is to try to answer Arthur's dilemma and to provide you all with some ideas for what we can do with all this stuff. So what are we talking about here? Well, according to the Flexible Packaging Association, by the year 2018, we're going to be using about 92 billion pouches here in the United States. About half of those are going to be multi-material, multi-laminate pouches. Total value of about $9.5 billion worth of material, and it's about 9 billion pounds of material, unless something changes, all of which will be headed up as garbage or as litter. So to put that into perspective, there were roughly about 50 billion water bottles consumed in the US in 2013 and about 90 billion aluminum cans. So we are on track to exceed the consumption of aluminum cans with flexible packaging in just a couple of years. So as Arthur says, what are we going to do with all this stuff? Now, as much as I would like to stand here and give you folks a nice and simple answer, I don't have one for you. So we're going to take a step back and peel the onion back a little bit further and start over with the hierarchy. And of course, all of you know that recycling is not at the top. Waste reduction and waste prevention is at the top. And unfortunately, you can't argue against the fact that flexible packaging reduces materials and reduces energy consumption. This is from a slide of a presentation I recently saw about the life cycle analysis of food packaging in the EU. And they made some assumptions in this LCA study, and they looked at if you were to take all of the flexible packaging currently in place, which is about 26% of the volume of the weight of the materials, and were to switch all of those flexibles over to recyclable plastic, and then assume total recycling for all of the materials, aluminum, glass, plastic, etc., it would actually increase the global warming impacts of that packaging by 6%. Now, commensurately, if you were to take all the recyclable containers and replace them with flexibles, throw it all in the garbage, you would diminish the carbon impacts of that packaging by 40%. Now, on waste prevention, it's a similar story. Again, this is assuming that if we replaced all the recyclable packaging with flexible packaging, you would reduce the total amount of packaging that goes to landfills, goes to disposal by 77%. It's about the equivalent of taking 1 million trucks off the road. So, game over, right? Let's just switch everything over to flexible, throw it all in the garbage, and be done with it. Let's reduce our way out of recycling. And of course, this is exactly what the flexible packaging industry is promoting. I go to the packaging trade shows, I go to the sustainable brands trade shows, and I've seen all their presentations, and the message is really this. They basically say, our LCAs rule, the rest of you packaging types can drool, consumer brands, you'll soon be packaging all your stuff in our pouches. And sometimes it feels like there's an evil little laugh at the end of that statement there. I actually saw somebody do that at the end of their presentation the other day, put their hands together like this, and I just thought of Mr. Burns. So anyway, now to some people, this might seem like small potatoes. I'm sorry, I'm going to back up just for a second. So the question you have to ask yourself, is this really the future we want to see, where lightweighting displaces recycling, and where the industry is essentially let off the hook for creating a package where the only thing you can do with it when you're done is to throw it in the garbage? Now, to some people, this might seem like small potatoes, but to us, it's really at the center of a core debate around who defines the future of sustainability. And ultimately it comes down to whether or not you believe that sustainable business practices should lead to the development of a circular economy, so that all of our stuff eventually goes to feed technical products like cell phones, or goes to feed bacteria as compost for farms, or the creation of bio-based products. Now, the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, which is an industry trade association that's working in this space, is very clear about this. They say that sustainable packaging should be effectively recovered and utilized in biological or industrial closed-loop cycles. Some of you may have heard of the Circular Economy 100, which is a partnership between businesses and innovators to accelerate the transition to a circular economy. It has all kinds of big brands and corporations involved in it, including Coca-Cola, HP, IKEA, Philips, and many more. And they're clear about this as well. They say a circular economy is one that is restorative by design, which distinguishes between and separates technical and biological nutrients and aims to keep products, components, and materials at their highest utility and value at all times. Now I ask you, does this sound like the flexible packaging industry's definition of sustainability to you, where material reduction trumps cradle-to-cradle principles of designing and stewarding materials for the continual reuse of materials and energy? Now, the industry says the problem is not with our package, it's with the MRFs. They basically say it's not our fault that the MRFs were built to handle heavier, thicker, and single material packaging. We're the innovators here. Somebody needs to invest in the MRFs. To which we would say, yeah, bingo. Right, somebody needs to invest in the MRFs and in the collection infrastructure and the public education to collect and utilize flexibles. Well, so now what? Of course, throwing flexible packaging willy-nilly into the curbside cart with all the containers isn't going to work at the MRFs. So what can work? Now here again, we don't have a tidy, all-encompassing answer, but we do have some evidence of a promising direction to collect and utilize these materials. So if you follow from the premise that any collection program for flexibles should work with the existing curbside infrastructure and that it should be easy for residents, easy for the MRFs, and something that can collect single and multi-materials packaging together, you have to look at logistics first and then markets. And on the logistics side, we've had a recent pilot program through Dow and Republic's Purple Energy Bag program in Citrus Heights, California. Now, this program ran last year and directed residents to put all non-recyclable plastics, including pouches, candy wrappers, cereal box liners, etc., into a purple bag, which would then get placed in the recycling cart. At the MRF, the purple bag was sorted off the line and it was sent to a pyrolysis or plastics to fuel plant run by Agilix. Now, just suspending any opinions about pyrolysis and just focusing on the upfront logistics, we would say that the Citrus Heights project is a viable model for the diversion of low-value plastics. Basically, it's only one additional sort for residents, easy for residents. It's easily sorted off the line at the MRF through either an upfront manual or mechanical sort. It's relatively simple stuff. So from the logistical side, we think this is a winner. Now, let's talk about the materials and what happens after the MRF. And here's where we get into the incineration debate. And Upstream is 100% completely opposed to municipal waste incineration. That being said, we are agnostic on the subject of plastics to oil. We know that many zero waste advocates are opposed to it. These materials don't have to be pyrolyzed. And several experts in the field have argued for the development of more plastics recovery facilities, or PRFs, to further separate these materials into saleable commodities. And there are several companies that currently recycle post-industrial flexible packaging into car parts and into pallets, into trash can liners, outdoor furniture, et cetera, et cetera. There's no reason that these companies couldn't also collect and recycle flexible packaging that's clean from curbside as well. Well, there's no reason except for economics, unfortunately. We were so close to an answer here. Yeah, unfortunately, to do any of this stuff, it's going to cost money. I mean, these are low-value materials that will never pay for themselves in the marketplace. So unless we start replacing the small amount of aluminum that's in these pouches with gold, the market itself is never going to solve these problems. So several people in the field have urged us to pursue EPR for plastics and leave the rest of the high-performing commodities alone. Now, there's some sound rationale behind this argument. And if we take it one step further, we could promote EPR as a funding tool to help pay for the development and expansion of collection infrastructure, recovery infrastructure, for flexibles and other low-value materials towards recycling and potentially other technologies. Now, while the jury is not out, we believe that this strategy currently combines workable logistics for residents and MRFs, market development for recycling through PERFs, and then you've got EPR, which provides the funding to make it all work and holds these companies accountable for the downstream impacts of their design decisions. So I'm going to close on a personal note. Many of you know that Upstream developed the Make It, Take It campaign in partnership with zero waste organizations and plastic pollution and resource conservation organizations around the country. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Anna Cummins, who's here from Five Gyres. They've worked with us a lot on getting this campaign off the ground. And the purpose of the campaign is to hold consumer goods companies accountable for the environmental and social impacts of packaging waste. And our first and ongoing campaign has been to target Kraft Foods and Capri Sun juice pouches. And a year ago, when we launched the campaign, I originally had thought that flexible packaging needed to be ditched in favor of traditional recyclables. But over time, as I've come to understand the material reduction and energy saving benefits, I've had to ask myself, why would I care if a company chooses a traditional rigid plastic container over a flexible plastic pouch? You know, if the latter was able to be collected and utilized, why should I advocate for the former? And I think that this is the challenge for zero waste advocates in all circles. You know, we have to make room for innovation, especially innovation that can help reduce the climate impacts of products and packaging and commercial activity. Now, that being said, we also need to hold true to circular economy and cradle-to-cradle principles so that we're designing and stewarding products and packaging to be for the continual reuse of materials and energy. And if we do both, and if we do them both well, we can go back to Arthur and say that we've helped solve his dilemma and say that we finally figured out what to do with all this stuff. So thanks very much. I'm very, very pleased to be here. I look forward to the questions and answers. Thanks again.